Introduction, and most of all, thank you for your kind invitation to this beautiful university. My lecture will be given in English, and I hope that I will not be speaking too fast. If I do, please raise your hand. I would be more than happy to slow down. Okay? My topic today is on, are you hearing okay back there? Okay. Is on the ethic of care. My focus is not on a general view of the ethic of care, but I would like to highlight the notion of the self that is presupposed or that is actually used in the ethic of care, as opposed from the ethic of justice, like in social contract theories, Hobbes, Kant, Rawls, and all that. Okay, so I would like to focus on the notion of the self. Also, what I will not be doing here is I will not be making a feminist analysis of the ethic of care. Okay, my focus will be hopefully only on the notion of the self, because I only have an hour. Okay, so where does all this come from? Let me give you some, excuse me, something disappeared. All right. Let me give you some introduction here, because the ethic of care came from a very concrete situation. It came from a very concrete development. It didn't come from centuries of talks, but it came from a specific moment. First of all, it was firstly formulated in a very clear manner by Gilligan, who is a psychologist, a developmental psychologist, who was studying child psychology as well, how a child develops, how the notion of morality is ingrained in psychology. So she's not only a psychologist, but she's also known as a feminist. She's also known as an ethicist due to her works in developmental psychology. You can see the details of her life there. PhD 1964 from Harvard, taught at University of Chicago and Harvard. She wrote the book that was dubbed as the book that started, the little book that started a revolution, called In a Different Voice. Okay, I'm sure that we have read it. It is a book in psychology, okay, but most of the students in philosophy will have read it at some point or another. Okay, because it marks a first clear formulation into what we now call as the relational moral subject. Okay. What was the debate about? How did it come about? She had a professor at Harvard called by the name of Lawrence Kohlberg. This is not a very flattering picture of him, but he is a psychologist, okay, taught at Yale, Chicago, Harvard. He was best known, his work was, the major point of his work was his theory of the stages of moral development. Okay, how does a person develop morally in different stages? How do you become, well, at the risk of generalizing, less moral to more moral? Okay, moral in a simple way to moral in a more sophisticated, in a more, important way, so to speak. All right, let me quickly go into this. We have a very concrete story that they were debating on. It's called the Heinz dilemma. Okay, a dilemma is a moral dilemma. What do I do in this case? There's a man named Heinz, okay? His wife is dying of cancer, all right? And there's a drug, a medicine that a druggist, a pharmacist has developed, okay? There's only one kind of drug that will save her life. But, and she will die if she does not get this drug. However, the cost of the drug was $200. The pharmacist insisted on selling it for $2,000, okay? Because he had invested his time, his ability, his all that into the drug. but Heinz does not have $2,000. Heinz went out and borrowed money from friends and family, and all he could find was $1,000. Okay, so he can't afford to buy it. And the pharmacist, he went to the pharmacist telling him of, the severity of the situation. And the pharmacist says, no, this is my right. This is my work. I should be compensated for my hard work. But now, he can't. So Heinz can't buy the drug. The pharmacist refuses to lower the price. The question is, should Heinz steal the drug or not? Okay. Now, what's interesting is that Lawrence Kohlberg had a group of children to answer this dilemma. Okay? This group of children consisted initially, in the beginning, only of boys. Okay? Only boys. So, only boys were the subjects of study. Later on, only later on, when somebody protested, he said, okay, I'll include girls too. Okay, but initially the subjects were designed to be boys only. So he included girls. Two of these children, one boy and one girl, became the origin of what we know as the debate for the ethic of care. Jake and Amy. Okay, the boy is Jake, the girl is Amy. Both are 11-year-old. Both are exceptionally doing well in school, and both have the similar aspirations. They're both good in science, in math, and all that, so very compatible. Now, there was an interview given. This scenario, this dilemma was presented to the kids, and then there was an interview. Jake, when asked, Jake clearly saw that the moral conflict of this story was between values of property, which is money, or the drug that translates into money, and life. On the one hand, there's money. On the other hand, there's life. The problem is mathematically clear. Okay? There's no question. Okay? There is no ambiguity. There is no question. It's money versus life. Property versus life. So, to him, there is a logical priority of life. Okay? If you have life and you have money, you need to save life before you save money. Okay? Whatever. So he justifies his choice through this logic. The interview says, Jake says, a human life is worth more than money. Okay? This is clear. Okay? And if the druggist only makes 1,000, which is the money that Heinz has, he's still going to live. All right? So there's life versus money. But if Heinz doesn't steal the drug, his wife is going to die. Clear. Okay? No ambiguity here. Then he was asked, why is life worth more than money? Jake answered, because the druggist can get $1,000 later from rich people with cancer. Okay, so he has the future to make all of this money, but Heinz cannot get his wife again. So property can be renewed, life cannot. Okay, why not? Because people are all different. Okay, it's not like you can say, oh, if this wife dies, I will replace her with another woman and it would be just the same. You can't do that. Okay, that's what he says, because people are all different, and so you could not get Heinz's wife again. Pretty clear. Okay, if you have a choice between life and property, you need to choose life. In this case, life, comes first, so we need to steal the drug. Okay, now it gets a bit more complicated. He was asked, should he steal the drug even if he does not love his wife? Okay, Jake said he should. Okay, he should. And if he did, even if he were caught stealing the drug, the judge would also think that it was the right thing to do. Okay? So he was further asked, in stealing, would he be breaking the law? Okay? Because there's a clear law against stealing, against violating other people's property. And Jake says, the laws have mistakes. okay? And you can't go, there can't be a law for everything, okay? And even the judge should have this moral understanding and should give Heinz the lightest possible sentence, okay? It was very clear, there is no ambiguity there. Bam, solution, steal the drug, okay? Now, we have Amy. And Amy did not agree with Jake. Amy didn't see the moral conflict as one between property and life, but she saw it as a conflict between the responsibility that one has for oneself and for others. Okay? Now, should he steal the drug? Now, just please try to read the interview short, okay? Well, I don't think so. Now imagine an 11-year-old girl. I don't think so, okay? There might be other ways than stealing it, like borrow the money or make a loan or something, which, by the way, Heinz already tried, okay? But he really shouldn't steal the drug, but his wife shouldn't die either, okay? So on the surface, you see a typical girly response. Okay, I want this and I want that and I don't want to steal, but I don't want her to die and all that. Okay. Now, if he stole the drug, he might save his wife, but he might have to go to jail. And if, his wife might get sicker again, and then who's going to take care of her? Okay. So, and he couldn't get more of the drug, and it might not be good, so they should really just talk it out. So discuss, they should negotiate and find some other way to make the money. So no stealing, okay, but the wife shouldn't die. Find a way, okay, communicate, negotiate, all right, steal it. Well, he shouldn't steal or let her die. She does not want either one to happen. Okay, and even if it was a stranger dying, he should still try to save her, Lastly, she was asked, why shouldn't Heinz steal the drug? She says, because it's not right. Okay, if he took it, he might not know how to give it to his wife, and so his wife might still die. Okay, so the responses were what you would stereotypically expect from an 11-year-old girl. And you might think, she doesn't think clearly. Okay, she jumps, she wants to have it both ways. She wants to have it all. Her thinking was not then answered. Okay, now, she assumes that if the druggist, if the pharmacist were to understand, really conceive and understand the severity of the situation, he would surely want to help save her, okay? They could just talk about it, negotiate, and come to an understanding, okay? Like, make a loan payment plan, okay? Maybe the husband could slowly pay for it or some way, but negotiate, communicate, okay? The problem that she saw was the failure of the druggist to compromise, to enter into communication. So it's not right for someone to die when their life could be saved. This is the story, okay? This is the controversy. Now, I have to briefly introduce Kohlberg's theory of moral development. I think this is translated in the little note that you have. Okay, Kohlberg says that there are actually 6 stages of moral development. 6 major stages. Each 2 can be compressed into 1, which is what I'm presenting here. Okay, so let me go through this in 2 minutes, I hope. Pre-conventional morality, which is if Heinz would say, I have to steal the drug because I do not want my wife to die. Okay? I have to steal the drug because of me, okay? Because I might not want my wife to die, okay? Or if I don't steal it, other people would think that I'm a bad husband. Something like that. A reasoning wherein you are the center of it, okay? Me, I don't want to lose my wife. I don't want to be seen as a bad husband, okay? That's the pre-conventional morality, lower stage. Second stage, conventional morality. Okay, this is, in other words, social pressure. What the society agrees is good. Okay, what the law says is good. This is a conventional social agreement. For example, do not break the law. So maybe he says, I shouldn't steal the drug because I don't want to break the law. It's appealing to the social code, okay? Or I don't want, or I should steal the drug because society would approve of a husband who loves his wife so much, okay? The center of moral deliberation becomes, instead of the self, the society or the social conventions. The last stage, okay, is what he calls post-conventional morality. This is closest to what we know as the mainstream moral theories, okay, Kantian, like the golden rule, okay, a blind judgment, morally speaking, a universal consideration, okay? Questions like, what if your wife was to die, and you don't have a wife yet, for example, okay? And you need to steal the drug. There's no drug of this kind, okay? So a hypothetical, universal application of a certain, moral dilemma, where you could think for others, others can think for you. We can sit here in this room and read the Heinz dilemma and discuss it to death, okay? But it would apply. So more like a moral principle, okay? According to Kohlberg, 1 is lowest, 3 is highest, and the development of a person cannot be skipped. You cannot start at 2 and then go to 3. You have to go from 1 to 2 to 3, and usually it starts young when you are a child. Now, what about Jake? Jake was very much, a life is worth more than property, okay? That's kind of a universal claim, okay? It's not that I love my wife, so I have to steal the drug. He goes very far ahead according to this formulation, okay? Now, what's the result? According to Kohlberg's test, Jake, okay, sees a conflict between life and property that can be resolved by logical deduction, okay, and categorical thinking, okay? Life, property, it's clear. Amy, however, sees the conflict between life and a lack of communication. This problem can be solved by honesty and open communication. She appeals to contextual relationships, okay? Relationships that are put in context, in real life. If he's not there, who is going to give his wife the medicine? Okay? So this is very much appealing to what may, in one way, be considered trivial. What's she talking about? We're talking about life and stealing, and she's talking about who's going to give the wife the medicine. Okay, so very contextualized, very concrete situations. All fine and good, okay? But the problem begins when Kohlberg argues or concludes that Jake shows a higher level of maturity than Amy, okay, through the use of logic. Why is this a problem? Because it is no longer saying that maybe girls and boys enter moral deliberation differently. Okay? This is not a factual statement. This is a value judgment. Because it is saying that, yes, there are different ways of reasoning, but one is better than the other. Which one? The boys. Okay? So now if we want to be considered morally advanced, we have to reason like Jake. That's what it's actually saying, okay? Because if you reason like Amy, you become lower, okay? And she's significantly lower. She scores significantly lower than Jake. So it goes from a factual statement that girls and boys, and by extension men and women, okay, reason morally differently to saying that one type of reasoning is better than the other. That's where the problem starts. Okay, that is where the problem starts. So now what? Carol Gilligan, who was a student of Kohlberg and was familiar with this study, that had Jake and Amy as subjects, saying, opposed this conclusion. And she said, wait a minute. First of all, instead of putting women or girls, okay, in this lower spot in the hierarchy, okay, maybe we can try to understand that they have a different way of reasoning, okay? And different does not mean lower, worse, but it means that it might be a valid type of reasoning for one part of humanity, okay? One gender, one whatever you want to call it. So we need to ask the question, what does Amy see that Jake does not? Okay, how does Amy situate herself in a moral situation that is different from Jake? Okay, so, where do we go from here? This is an important point, okay, because in saying that Amy scored less than Jake, Kohlberg is saying that women's moral deliberation is not as, theoretically advanced as men, and if they want to be, they need to change their type, their way of moral reasoning to the other. So there is an application of this male-dominated understanding of morality onto women. So in other words, if you want to be morally clever, morally advanced, be more like a man. Okay, and that was something that Gilligan strongly disagrees. Now, what does she do? Gilligan, first of all, says, look, Kohlberg's study is flawed. It is limited, it is flawed, it is, wrong. It is limited for what reason? First of all, your study subjects are 11-year-olds. Okay, what do they know about having a wife die? About, the possibility of being sentenced to jail, about losing a loved one. Okay? Secondly, the study was designed for boys only. Okay? Girls were only added later. Thirdly, they are boys and girls, 11-year-olds. How do you jump from the conclusion that you gain from these subjects to grown men and women? Okay, so the study is flawed. Okay, so Carol Gilligan says, wait, I'm going to do it my way. So she switched her study, okay, which was the first study where the ethic of care began to, show its face. She interviewed 29 recently pregnant women. When I say recently pregnant, it means that they're still in the first trimester where abortion is still legal. This is in the United States, okay? Of different cultural and economic backgrounds, okay? 15 to 33 years old. They all are contemplating whether they should have an abortion or not, okay? Different situations. Interviewed these women and followed up at the end of the following year, which means that either they already had the abortion or... So some of these are 15-year-old high school students. Some of these are housewives who have already had 3 children, and now there's a 4th, okay? Some of these were victims of rape. Some of these actually wanted babies, but would also like to continue their studies, okay? In all of these cases, having a baby would dramatically change what they see for themselves in life, okay? Some are in school. If they have the baby, they would not be able to care for the baby. They have to get out of school, find a job, find a way to arrange it, okay? In some cases, the woman was raped by her husband, okay? In some cases, the woman said, look, I've already had 2-3 children. I would like to now go back to work. And now I can't because I'm pregnant again, okay? So, Gilligan says that this study is more valid. Why? Because it is situated in a real-life experience of women. It is not a hypothetical situation. It is what, in their lived experience, they are the center of the problem. You are not considering other people's hypothetical problem, Heinz's wife. You are living the problem, okay? So, it's a different thing to say, well, if I get pregnant, would I have an abortion? And to say, I am pregnant, and this pregnancy will dramatically change my life. Should I have it? Okay? So the urgency of and the severity of the moral deliberation becomes more, life-threatening, so to speak. Okay? So what happens here? In all these cases, the women that were interviewed saw the moral conflict as one between the responsibility to the self and responsibility towards others. What does that mean? I don't want to have a baby now. Okay, I already had 3, I was raped, I'm 15 years old, I'm whatever, I don't have the money. Okay, or, well, this is my baby. Okay, the baby has a right to be alive as well. Or others could also be people other than the baby. Like, I'm 15 years old. My parents are prominent members of the society. If I have a baby and I'm 15 years old, I will greatly embarrass them. Okay, my parents will be angry. What about my grandparents? What about my friends in school? Okay, so the responsibility sways from me, myself, and the others. Others including the baby, the unborn child, the parents, the friends, the society, and all that. What if I really want the baby, but, I grew up in this strong Catholic society, okay, so I had sex before marriage somehow, and I'm so young, and I'm whatever, okay. In America, of course, there have been cases where 15-year-olds commit suicide, okay, because of their religious upbringing when they get pregnant, okay. Now, the subjects in this case expressed their true voices. They expressed what we call their narrative, their life story. And Gilligan believes that it is only by understanding their voices, their life story, the particular situation of each person, okay? It is only by doing so that you can help them reach a moral deliberation that would balance out the responsibilities between the self and the others. Okay? You cannot, for example, ask the same useless question that has been asked for decades. Like, when does life begin? Okay, now you go, 3 months. Okay, no, life begins at conception, so no abortion possible. Or no, sometimes 5 months or 6. Or no, not until the child is born and becomes whatever. Okay, so these questions have been asked and answered to death, and it does not get us anywhere. Okay, or you could also ask the other useless question, which is more important? The baby's right to life or the mother's right to her own body? It has been debated for decades and decades, and here we still are. Okay, why? Because that attempts to make abortion a universal moral formulation. Okay, a mathematical one. When does life begin? 3 months. And I found it so humorous because then at 2 months and 30 days, okay, it's still not alive, but then a day later, click, midnight, there's the life. You know, I could never understand it, but people reason this way. You know, why do you think that, you know, in a lot of countries, abortion is legal until so and so? Not legal after the first trimester or whatever. Of course, there are medical researches that, oh no, the fetus can feel pain, okay? The fetus can do this and do that and whatever, okay? So these are, I will fully call these useless questions because they do not help these women who are between 15 and 33, who are deliberating something that would dramatically change their lives, okay? Doesn't help. So according to Gilligan, only by listening and understanding, she calls it hearing the voices, okay, in a different voice, okay, only by truly hearing and understanding these voices can you begin to conceive the narrative that these moral subjects are going through, okay. So, where does that leave us? How much time do I have left? Okay, still quite a bit, right? All right, let me jump into some theoretical jargon, just so you can get an idea of what this is about. We have here a new type of ethics, okay? We have here, although it started as a psychological study, it is philosophically significant because it raises questions about the moral subject. Okay, let's call one the ethic of care and the other the ethic of justice. Let's have what Jake said, you know, each time there's a conflict between life and property, life comes first. So this is matter of life, you know, we need to steal the drug, which is a syllogistic, you know, thinking, a deduction, a mathematical approach. That is called the ethic of justice. But the ethic of justice also has its, you know, its advantages, its world, because it attempts, well, it grew out of a historical context, okay, where social injustice, social inequality determined what is right or wrong, okay, where right or wrong moral judgments depends on who you are. Are you an affluent person in the society? Are you whatever? So the attempt was to make everybody equal. Whoever you are, in a moral deliberation, you are to be treated equally. That is the ethic of justice. So when you say, okay, for example, when does life begin? All right, you attempt to treat every abortion case universally, the same, okay? So it has its advantages, which is also why it has lived for so long. But Gilligan says, okay, it has its advantages, but it may not be reason enough for it to be the predominant ethical approach. Let us look quickly at this, okay? The psychological basis in ethic of care, okay? Now, according to Gilligan, before I enter to this, in hearing the women's voices in their different narratives, you do need to care, okay? You don't just sit there and say, tell me what your problem is. You need to care enough to understand. You need to work toward a goal that would balance out responsibility between the self and the others. So caring becomes an essential feature in attempting to hear this different voice, okay? So it's not just a hypothetical thing. It's a human emotional investment, Okay? It's a human emotional investment. So the psychological basis here is one of attachment, where one's identity is conceived as relational. What does that mean? You, every one of us, is somebody's child. Okay? I am a daughter, someone's daughter. I am someone's sister. Okay? I am someone's aunt. I am someone's friend. My identity is a collection of these relations. Okay? I am not an atom. Remember, atomistic self. I am not an atom that exists independently of any relations in the world. So that's where we start. We start from recognizing that our identities are relational. Now, you might say, of course, this is so obvious, and but think of what we call the ethic of justice. Think of Hobbes. Okay, Thomas Hobbes. Think of when he talks about humans as if they are mushrooms springing forth from the earth. They don't even have to have parents. They're like mushrooms. They pop up. Okay? They enter into a social contract. The autonomy and the rights of each and every one of them. Think of John Rawls. You know John Rawls, right? You know what John Rawls says, in order to get the fairest social contract, social agreement, before we enter into any of that, it's an imaginary practice. Go behind the veil of ignorance. Okay? The curtain of ignorance. What happens behind the curtain of ignorance? You don't know who you are. That's the first thing. You don't know if you're a man or a woman. You don't know if you are disabled or if you're able. You don't know if you're blind. You don't know if you're mute. You don't know if you have a learning disability. You don't know if you have a family or if you're on the street. You don't know if you have some money or if you're penniless. Okay, you don't know if you have friends. You don't know what political aspirations you have or whatever. What religion you are. Rawls says, leave all of this behind. Okay? That is the only way where you can negotiate the fairest, the most just social agreement. Okay? Because, why? Because then you are not favoring yourself. If you know, for example, that you are disabled, you might try to propose something that favors the disabled. Okay? Or if you know that you are able-bodied, you might not care about the disabled at all. So Rawls says the only condition for arriving at a fair social agreement is by not knowing who you are or who the others are. What does that mean? That means that the moral subject is S. Okay? Is a letter. Who is S? S could be you, could be me, could be anybody. And whoever S is, everything would function the same. Okay? Because that's the only way to ensure justice. But then comes other people, mostly women, mostly feminists, who says, no. Because we need to ask, who is S? Without knowing who this S is, how can you have a moral deliberation that takes into account the real problems at work? Moral formulations cannot be blind. They cannot be universal. They have to be situated in a concrete, particular situation. Okay? So, there is, not the detachment, not the separation. Look at what you call the golden rule. Okay? Do unto others as you would, want to be done by. What does that mean? Who are the others? Okay? And who are you? But this applies to everybody. But can it really? Okay? Can it really? Can this moral subject be S without knowing? Okay? Would it matter if S is male or female? Okay? Would it matter if S has a different religion from the other S? Okay? Would it matter if S is disabled? Would it matter if S is of a certain nationality, ethnicity, religion, socio-political, standing, economic, academic interest, education? All of these make you who you are. Family, how have you been brought up? This will surely affect how you deliberate moral situations. Okay, next, moral premise. Okay, ethic of care is no one should be hurt. All right, no one should be hurt. All right, okay. Ethic of justice says that everyone should be treated the same. Right, you're behind the veil of ignorance. Moral conflict, we've seen responsibilities and rights. Right to property, right to life. Clear. Okay. Mode of thinking. In the ethic of care, you talk about something contextual, something that happens in real life context, a particular situated narrative. Whereas in the ethic of justice, of course, it's abstract, it's formal. Why? So that you can ensure that it would function, it would apply to everyone universally, the same. Next, moral obligation. The ethic of care says that you need to have care and compassion. Okay? While the ethic of justice says that you need to be fair, you need to have equal respect for everyone, you need to reciprocate, like in the golden rule, okay? And you need to be impartial. It does not matter who this person is, okay? It could be your daughter, it could be a stranger, it could be your enemy, okay? They function the same, okay? Moral development, of course. How do you become more morally developed? Well, first, by understanding the responsibility of and relationships. Whereas the other says you got to understand rights and rules and principles of conduct, how they work. Okay? The moral aim. Okay, the purpose of all this, ethic of care says, because we need an interpersonal understanding. Understanding means hearing another person's voice on the basis of care. We'll get to that in a bit, okay? The other, of course, manifestation of equal respect. I'll leave you this file so that you could, if you want to, you can copy this. I'm going to go forward. Okay, so what do we have here? Descriptive elements of the ethic of care. It understands the world as being comprised of a web of relationships. Why do I say web? Because there's not only one relationship. You have a variety of relationships that sometimes intersect, that sometimes, sometimes conflict. Sometimes in order to keep one relationship, you need to break another one, okay, and all that. And these relationships are sustained by communication, okay, not by moral rules, communication. Actors in moral dilemmas or moral subjects are members of a network of relationships on whose communication they all depend. So, by being a member of this moral community, it is presupposed that you are willing to communicate your needs to others as much as you are willing to try to understand and listen and hear the needs of others. It is a reciprocal thing based on caring. Okay, so the self here is defined through interpersonal connection. Who am I? I'm not an atom. I'm a relational being. Okay? Morality and responsibility are seen as ways of restoring community. What's this community? Community of web of relationships. Okay? It focuses on the need for a response. If somebody is trying to convey their voice, their narrative to you, you are morally obligated to listen, to try to hear them. Okay, and that is done if you assume that the basis of all communication is care. Okay, so one is responsible to care for others and to respond to their needs. Now, what then is an ethic of care? Excuse me. Ethic of care has been formulated in many different ways, okay, by many different thinkers. Sarah Ruddick, okay, Neil Noddings, okay, Eva Kitty, all of these people, but I can't cover them all in 1 hour, okay, so I'm just going to use one. An ethic of care is an ethical perspective that seeks to preserve and nurture the concrete relations in a web of relationships. Over and over again. Maybe you can try to listen to their narrative, to why this need is so important to them. Okay? Even if you think it's stupid, even if you think it doesn't make sense, even if you think it's so annoying, but if you listen to their narrative, to their voice, okay, communicate with them, ask them why, and then you are morally obligated to respond to these needs. Okay, it works both ways though. You are not the primary caregiver where you have to respond to everyone's needs. You have to assume that other people are willing to respond to yours as well. And the basis of all that is care. Now, we go back. Gilligan proposes her own theory of moral development. I will explain this by using her study, okay, the 29 women who were contemplating abortion. These stages strongly resemble Kohlberg stages, okay, but they differ in significant ways. For example, in the first stage, pre-conventional, remember in Kohlberg's theory, if you say, I should steal the drug because I don't want to lose my wife. In this case, it works a bit differently because the women who are contemplating abortion, who are in this first stage, who are then later categorized as being in the first stage, would say, I want to continue my studies, okay? I don't want to have the additional burden of a child. I don't want to be blamed by my parents, my friends. I don't want to go to school with a pregnant belly. Okay, so the concern is me. Okay, I want to go back to work, for example. I don't want a fourth child. The concern is me. Okay, now, second stage. The concern goes into what we call the conventional stage, okay? And it goes the opposite way because now the focus is on social conventions, okay? Orientation to self-sacrifice. It depends also very much on the social conception of what you consider to be good girls and good boys, okay? Good girls do what? They take care of others, okay? Now say what you will, at home, okay, you still see girls helping mommy in the kitchen instead of boys, okay? You still see girls doing whatever. So there is this social, not only a social expectation, but a social stereotype that forces itself upon people, okay? You don't see boys doing their beds, okay? You don't see boys helping out. No, that's what girls do, okay? If you go have an Easter lunch, who are in the kitchen? Certainly not the men. The men are outside playing football, for example, okay? So there is a certain understanding of what a good girl is, a good boy is. And for women especially, it works that way, in a way that says, if I have to sacrifice myself, okay? How does the sacrifice come about? I may sacrifice myself by saying, okay, I will carry this child. I will sacrifice my
the revival of my career for, this child, for my family. Or I will sacrifice myself for the peace of mind of my family and my family's social status by aborting this baby, so nobody would be embarrassed by this. Okay? So the focus is more on others than on you. But it could be the baby, again, it could be the people surrounding you, but it is usually not you. Okay? Now, Gilligan says that at the end of stage 2, this is a transitional stage, okay? Because once you are in this stage, you do feel like, wait, this is not right, okay? This is not right. Okay, I'm aware I shouldn't think only about me, but why should I think only about others instead of me? So you go through this transitional stage and finally enter into the post-conventional one, okay? Where through a good communication only, okay, you can try to navigate and negotiate your way in order to find the right balance between the responsibility you have towards yourself and the responsibility that you have towards others, being the unborn child, being the family, the friends, the society, and the whatever. A concrete example, okay? There was a girl, 16 years old in this study, who was in high school, okay? Family was strongly Catholic, and by Catholic I mean American Catholic, okay? She got pregnant, so she was embarrassed, and she felt guilty, extremely guilty for having, gotten pregnant at 16. She's in school. She's going to a Catholic school, of course. Okay. Has friends, has parents are prominent members of the community and all that. But, okay, so she said, I had sex without protection, or had sex before marriage, or whatever the guilt was. But I'm going to choose to not abort this baby. But I'm still in school. Okay, I'm still in school. What do I do in order to not have to abort this baby and at the same time can continue what I would like to do? In the end, okay, through the help of others, of other family members, she went to her parents and said, look, this is what happened. I'm pregnant, okay? I don't want to abort the baby because my belief tells me that the child, becomes alive since conception. Okay, so I don't want to kill, I want to keep the baby. This was her line of reasoning. But I can't without destroying my life, in the sense that I have to get out of school, find a job, and all that. So, what can we do? I do not want to embarrass you, my family, okay? But at the same time, I also do not want to betray you by whatever. In the end, the parents say, okay, have the baby. We, as your parents, relationship, okay, we as your parents will help out financially. You will drop out of school for 1 year, okay, to have the baby and all that, and then you will go back. When you go back, we will take care of the baby, okay? We will finance you on the condition that once you're done with your studies, you work, you pay us back, okay? And you work when you have free time. Instead of going out with your friends to take care of your child, we negotiate in order to come to an agreement, a situation where everybody feels that they are not the only ones to lose, okay? Where everyone's needs are responded to a certain extent, okay? Where not one person loses completely and the other person gains, okay? This requires a situatedness in a concrete narrative, okay? So this girl was in stage 3, All right, so we kind of see the picture here. Okay, I have to, this we see, what's good about ethic of care? It says that humans are essentially relational. Essentially, okay? Humans are by essence, by nature, relational. When you are born, you're already born in a certain relation, okay? You're not born as a mushroom. It places emphasis on emotions, okay? On emotions, because in caring, it stresses compassion, it stresses sympathy, it stresses care, it stresses love, okay? These are not things that have any place in what we call the ethic of justice. Prioritization of human relations, family as the primary units of society. This is pretty clear. Okay, let me get to my last slide. What's wrong with the ethic of care? There's a reason why the ethic of care is not considered one of the mainstream ethics of our time. Okay, it falls, sadly to say, well, it has developed, quite a bit, but it falls under some of the same criticisms as the ones that Gilligan made towards Kohlberg. Okay, first of all, this is the most important one to me at least. Okay, first of all, the ethic of care has been called a slave morality, following Nietzsche. Okay, what is a slave morality? A slave morality is, when you're a slave, when you are the disadvantaged person in some type of power hierarchy, you tend to reason in a way that would continue your servitude, your subservient state, okay, in order to justify that, okay? So in caring, in being the caretaker, okay, and the listener, these are traits that women have been assigned in all of history. And now they are being valorized. And now they are being celebrated as the good things. In other words, are these not precisely the values that have kept women suppressed all through history? Okay, so how do we get past this? Next, it is empirically flawed, exactly as Kohlberg's. She's using 29 women as subjects of study. Who are these 29 women? They are people who are contemplating abortion. What does that mean? It means that you're excluding women to whom abortion is impossible. Okay? You're dealing only with a group of women to whom abortion is a possibility, at least, mentally. Okay? You're excluding women who cannot have children anymore, women who do not want children, okay? Women who engage in, say, birth control, for example. Okay? So, again, you're using only a little group of women, and you're claiming a theory of morality that covers women, in general. Third, theoretically indistinct. Some people say, well, go look at some of the mainstream ethics, like, look at Aristotle's virtue ethics. What if care can be considered as one of the virtues? So it's not really different from what we already have. Okay, so theoretically indistinct. Next, care ethics is parochial, which means it's restricted. What does it mean? Care ethics says clearly that you need to prioritize caring for people closer to you before people who are far away. You need to care for your children before you care for other people's children, okay? Because they are in a closer proximity of relationships to you. And so your care towards them has to be prioritized. So before you attend to starving children in other parts of the world, you need to care for yours first. It makes it restricted. It also opens the door for favoritism. okay? I'm going to care for my family and not for yours, okay? Next, it's essentialist because it claims that every woman has the same nature. It does not take into account the diversity among women, okay? Women of different races, women of different ages, women of different ethnicities, of different religions. Women themselves are diverse. So now you're claiming that all women are situated in this caring, mindset. Next, it's ambiguous because when you are faced with the question, what should I do? Care ethics does not provide a clear way. It says, listen with care. And then what? Okay, it doesn't say, oh, put it in the golden rule, put it in the calculation of utility or anything. It doesn't tell you much, okay? But it is an important shift in the conception of the self in moral deliberations. I'm going to stop here. Thank you.